Hey, David Wygant here. I don't know if you guys know this, or you probably do because I've been around for a long, long, long time. And one of my greatest passions is health. I mean, I can sit around on YouTube at night and I can watch videos on health and blood sugar and cholesterol. And yeah, I know you just guys could get real bored by that. But you know what? Health is everything. It means everything. And it's amazing how many people, and if you're one of these people, okay, you need to really listen. And I want you to write something down. This is going to be an interactive session for you, okay? And I want you to kind of write this down. On a scale from 1 to 10, where do you rate your knowledge of health? Okay, write that down. On a scale from 1 to 10, where do you rate your awareness of your own health? Meaning, do you just go to the regular doctor, okay, the Western doctor who basically does a blood panel on you and basically doesn't even do your insulin resistance and doesn't even do your A1C and doesn't even do anything. He just does the basic markers, right? You really have absolutely no idea. How many of you understand on a scale from 1 to 10 that you're not your genetics? Ooh, that's a good one. Well, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. That's when people used to go to movies. So now we don't go to movies. And by the way, AMC stock is now called Ape. Go figure that out. You go to the movie theater there, you have some bananas and some popcorn, and you throw it to people. Oh, that reminds me of going to New York City movie theaters when I was in my 20s. Anyway, we're going to talk about health today. Your health. Your health. Your health today is the most important thing that you can possibly imagine and possibly think about. Your health. We have one body, one mind, one soul. Now, I know a lot of you understand and really believe, that our bodies are just rent-a-cars for our souls. I mean, that's pretty much the truth. We're going to go rent another car in our next life. And when we come back, I'd like to come back as a Tesla that has a range of like 5,000 miles on it, so I just basically don't age. I just keep going and going and going. So we're going to talk about health right now with an amazing man who lives in Hawaii. Why do all the amazing people live in Hawaii? Because they're smart. Because why should they live on the mainland and deal with traffic and other things when they can look and see all the amazing, beautiful nature and the herbs that grow and the energy fields that are there, just the magnetic energy when you put your feet in the ground. I mean, it's awesome. So I've got somebody who I am absolutely fond with who's actually been working on my health. My health hasn't been great the last 3 weeks, but hey, it's got nothing to do with him. It's got to do with, we pick things up in life and we process things through, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. But Glenn gives me things that I fully have faith and trust in. And I think you need to listen to this because you are going to come out of this interview, listening to this interview, feeling way healthier than you ever did before. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Dr. Glenn. Dr. Glenn, how are you?
Feeling pretty good.
Good.
Grateful.
Good. That was a long-winded wind-up, but, some people deserve short wind-ups. Some people deserve long wind-ups. So before we go into what a lot of the questions that you gave me, I want you to give people the background, your background, okay? Where this journey started, what type of doctor did you start off with, and how did you end up getting into, really changing the way you move and go through it? Because the holistic route to me has been the route since I'm 60, and since I was 33 and I moved to Boulder and I met my first airy-fairy, muscle testing person. And I looked at them, I was like, what are you doing? Why are you grabbing my wrist and moving it up and down like this? You're very damp. I know it's like 95 degrees. I'm sweating like crazy. No, you're damp. And they gave me something and I felt great, better than I ever felt my entire life. So I was sold. So Glenn, how did you start this journey? Where did your process come from?
Well, it goes back to the family I chose to come in with in this life. My dad was a holistic optometrist, one of the forerunners of behavioral optometry, developmental optometry, working with people with their eyes and vision through exercise. And he also believed strongly in nutrition. Our family medical doctor, who he'd refer people to if they had eye health problems for the nutritional side, had spent 20 years in hospital-based nutritional research when like vitamin A was discovered, and they're looking at the liver metabolism of the vitamin. And also energy medicine research with Steinmetz, who's a famous, physicist, one of the top physicists of the 20th century at General Electric. We were in upstate New York where that was located. And I was named after him, Dr. Martin. My middle name is Martin. So I was related to them, and my mom, who was a registered nurse, and reading Adele Davis and making yogurt, in the early '60s, and Dr. Martin would send us to certain farms to buy organic produce when that wasn't a thing. There was no official designation of organic produce. You couldn't find it in a grocery store. And go to a certain shop for fish, this certain fish market where they were bringing up fish from Long Island Sound instead of fish from the Hudson River, which later became illegal. But at that time, no, if you were buying fish in the regular store, you didn't know if it had how much PCBs it had in it, or it was a serious issue. We have a lot more regulation of the quality of food and environment now than we had back in the '60s. Dr. Martin in 1960 was, I remember as a kid in his practice, I remember him firing a patient because they wouldn't stop smoking cigarettes. And this is back when, cigarettes were still doing commercials saying, well, 9 out of 10 physicians recommend whatever it was, Lucky Strikes or something. So he was just so far ahead of his time. I knew that was the way that medicine needed to be. And I was very interested in nutritional medicine and energy medicine. Along the lines of my dad, my mom, and our family doctor. When it got to time to looking at going to medical school, I was actually a better student than my classmate friends who were going to go to medical school. I could have easily gotten in, but you know what? I decided that is not the route for me, because I want to do nutrition. I want to do healing. I want to do nutritional medicine. I want to do energy medicine, working with the body to heal itself naturally rather than invasively, like the thought of that you're healing the body with, well, surgery is sometimes necessary for survival, but it doesn't actually make us healthier. It's an acceptance of defeat that, oh, well, your gallbladder is so bad we can't heal it. We got to take it out, or replace that hip joint, or, take out the lens in your eye because you have a cataract and we're going to put in a plastic lens now to replace it. That's not healing. It's, and drugs are not healing. Drugs are, basically patent medicine. The Rockefellers and Carnegies 100 years ago did a study, they commissioned a study to see how they could take over medicine and make the most money. And the Flexner report came back saying, oh, well, patent medicine, because the government has already decided that they'll use their force of arms, threat, duress, coercion, and at gunpoint, enforce your patents for however many years, 18 years or whatever it is. You can have a monopoly, and the Rockefellers' ears perked up at that. They love monopoly. They already had a monopoly on oil, petroleum, and then that expanded into the railroads for transporting the oil. So now, the commodity and the transport. What else can we? Oh, we'll expand into medicine. Do you know that the first major thing that the rock oil, petroleum, was sold for was as a medicine?
Ew.
Well, today, 2/3 of our medicines are still made from that. They're synthetic chemicals made from petrochemical source. But yeah, rock oil itself was the main competitor with snake oil. And snake oil, well, we know what happened there, that snake oil was demonized, right, in the press. So the Rockefellers, took over the communication, the mass communication, and said, snake oil is bad. These guys are charging a high price for this thing, and rock oil is the thing that actually works. You want to drink that. Well, now, today, we actually know from the nutritional research of what is in snake oil. Snake oil turns out to be the highest substance in essential fatty acids. So that was the medicine. It still is. I mean, it's expensive because how much oil can you get from a snake versus, when it gushes out of the ground, it's cheap. So it's a crazy, crazy world. I decided not to become a medical doctor, but to follow in my dad's profession of optometry, because I knew that he had some colleagues who were, were not being suppressed by their profession, who were doing great research in nutrition around eye disease, cataracts, glaucoma, macular degeneration, receiving awards from their colleagues rather than losing their licenses for trying to treat something with nutrition. And today, it's getting to be a little bit of a different story. We now have integrative medicine. About 3-4 years ago was finally brought into the fold in the American Medical Association as an approved medical specialty. So, if I were going to school today, perhaps I would go the medical route. But anyway, I knew that I could do some good work in the field of vision. And so when I was in optometry school in my last year of studies, I was actually diagnosed with glaucoma. So I was not really interested in the disease aspect, more in the healing, the exercise, nutrition. How do we improve vision for somebody who's had a head injury or a stroke or a child with learning problems where they can't get meaning out of what they see? But that sort of brought the eye disease field front and center for me personally. It's like, the ophthalmology professor who diagnosed me said, "You're only 25. And you know what, the drugs and even surgery, runs out of steam. It works a little bit to slow things down, but it doesn't stop the disease process. You're not removing the cause of disease with a drug or surgery. And so in 25 years, by the time you're 50, you're going to be blind, most likely, even with, the best standard of care, medical care that we have at that time, which is still about the same now. So that brought my research on eye disease and prevention and reversal of eye disease really on the front burner. My first office was a research practice in Tokyo, Japan, and while I was there, I got to give a presentation to the doctors in Japan who were interested in nutrition, an international organization, and so I did a lot of research to prepare for that. And that really got me started. When I got back to the States, I wanted to practice with my dad. So I did that in the mid 80s and just was in upstate New York, had access to all kinds of great seminars, alternative doctors teaching throughout New England, New York area. So pretty much every weekend I was learning another aspect. So we were doing blood tests, but then taking the blood test results and running it through a computer algorithm to see not just, what's clinically normal. They say, if you're in the furthest 5% of the population, then it's tagged as high or low on a blood test. So you have to be worse than 95% of the clinical population. These are the people who are going to doctors because they have a problem. So that's why, you can go to a doctor and have, as you were saying, routine SMAC type of blood test, 20, 24, however many different things, material substances that you're measuring in the blood. And you have a symptom and the doctor will say, well, everything's normal, which means you're not worse than the other next 19 people who walk into the office with a problem. And if it gets worse, come back and we'll test. Maybe we'll see something then. So our sensitivity of getting meaningful information in standard medical testing is way too low to deal with health. We only deal with disease. So what we were doing is taking those standard tests, but then running them through a computer system that would look at patterns. Because, hey, if these handful of tests are all on the high side, none of them are out of the clinically normal range, but they're all moving in that same direction, there's a pattern there. There's a flow. There's just like talking about in Oriental medicine, with the muscle tester, and they're saying, oh, you got dampness. These kinds of patterns, like we look at in Oriental medicine or other traditional kinds of medicines, homeopathy, those are so significant because they look at the individual and how, you could have two people with the same diagnosis or the same symptom, but the underlying cause and the underlying patterns of function and dysfunction could be very, very different. And therefore, the treatment, where, in Western medicine, the treatment usually winds up being the same thing. It's the, drug of the day. We call it conventional medicine because you go to a convention and find out which drugs are supposed to be good this year. By next year, you'll know what the side effects are, and so you need a new drug that isn't tainted by what's in the PDR. Literally had a patient one time say they talked to their doctor. The doctor was recommending a drug to them. They said, "Well, but I'm concerned about look at all the side effects that are listed in the PDR." And the doctor literally said to them, "Oh, well, if you read that, you wouldn't take any of these drugs." It's like, yes, he's onto something.
I want to add something to that. My daughter and I were watching a show, and commercial comes on. It's a drug commercial, right? She's 12 in a couple of weeks, right? And she looks at me. She goes, "All right, Dad. So you get rid of a rash, but you have chronic diarrhea. You have itching in your groin because this is all the things, right? You have night sweats. You have the potential to have a stroke." And you have the potential to have a heart attack, right? But you got rid of your rash. Because I don't understand. I'd rather itch. And it's just that our whole, and this is interesting what you're saying, because I think a lot of us don't understand that we can ask our own bodies, what we're doing. If we really, I'm a big fan of journaling and writing everything down, right? And keeping track of things. And I was having trouble sleeping, and I was peeing nonstop, right? And I realized, wait a second, I'm drinking water up until 7:30 at night. I'm eating dinner at 8:30. It's a pound of vegetables. Gee, I wonder why I can't sleep, right? Through the whole thing. So what you do process of elimination, and this from wellness and health. I eliminated all that, started eating dinner at 6:30, and I get up at 1 o'clock in the morning now, and I'm like, what's different? Oh, I don't have to be. Oh, I get it. And I think that leads to, because I love the background, the passion, and everything else.